Our fifth story on the countdown, the president's pledge to keep both his defense secretary and his vice president until January 2009. Other Republicans echoing his call and in so doing insulting U.S. troops in Iraq and the generals by making the mess on the ground there entirely their fault. In a moment, the military analysis from Thomas Ricks, author of Fiasco, the American Military Adventure in Iraq. At least one Republican lawmaker taking Mr. Bush's remarks even further. Congressman John Boehner, the number 2 Republican in the House, defending not just the defense secretary, but also shifting responsibility for Iraq from Mr. Rumsfeld to the men and women in uniform on the ground there. Quote, let's not blame what's happening in Iraq on Rumsfeld. The fact is the generals on the ground are in charge, and he works closely with them and the president. To save Rummy by throwing the troops under the bus campaign and coming at a time when the war in Iraq has never looked worse to the American public or even to the military itself. As promised, I'm joined now by the military correspondent of the Washington Post, Thomas Ricks, also, of course, author of one of the definitive works on the conflict, Fiasco. Thank you for your time again tonight, sir.
Thank you.
If we take at face value what the president, what Congressman Boehner are saying, is there any way that what's happening in Iraq is not the defense secretary's fault, or at least if you want to use the word responsibility instead? In other words, give us a reality check on how culpable the generals on the ground in Iraq really would be when the strategies and the resources are set at the Pentagon.
Well, look, clearly some of it is Rumsfeld's fault. You don't get a mess as big as Iraq through the faults of a few officials, Bush, Cheney, Rumsfeld. What we've had in Iraq is a systemic failure. And actually, I think the Democrats could take a page from the Republicans' book here. The generals are part of the problem in Iraq. A lot of decisions have been made poorly on the ground, and the generals have not really let themselves be criticized. So it's one thing to criticize generals, it's another thing to criticize troops. And I think if the Democrats realize there's a difference between the troops and the generals, they'd be better off.
Do you think that contained in Congressman Boehner's remarks about the responsibility there is a genuine insult to the generals, not to the troops?
Well, he said the generals, yeah. I think all too often the generals themselves have blamed the troops for mistakes that actually were made much higher up, and the troops simply bore the consequences of them. So I think it's probably a good thing that people are talking about some of the mistakes generals have made.
I'm Keith Olbermann. Good night.